My sincerest apologies for being late. Uh, Today is a very significant day for several reasons. Let me tell you why. I was on the road just now, um, dropping off a lady who's about 85 years old so that she could get to an appointment in Portmore to be seen. We were supposed to have taken her to that appointment on Monday. That didn't work at all. Yesterday didn't work. She has a critical appointment on Thursday. So we needed to make certain that she gets this prior appointment today. And it was a combination of several entities, just making certain that it happened this morning. This morning is, in many respects, a similar situation. This month is referred to as, in many respects, and we all know it's Parenting Month, isn't it? Yeah, it's also Youth Month. It's also Community Awareness Month. And it's also Drug Awareness Month. Several entities coming together. And in many respects, what we are seeing is what I've just described, partnerships. Partnerships. And without partnerships, we are really doomed for failure. Doomed for failure. And so this occasion this morning is something that has been uh, gestating for some time. And it really gives me great privilege to welcome all of us this morning to the official opening of the Lara Otunla Counselling Center, part of the Fish Medical Center. And so I would want to acknowledge the very special presence of several persons who are here to witness this partnership, this coming together of a number of factors, number of entities for the betterment of the youth and the families of Jamaica. And so I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Marsha Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and Youth. Yes, yes. When you have to watch TV and when you have to listen to the news and see some things, then you know some persons. Welcome, welcome, Minister of State. We welcome Ms. Candice Carby, Chairman of the Board of Management, Fish Medical Center. Welcome, Ms. Candice. And then we welcome Reverend Bruce Paulson, pastor of Christian Life Fellowship Church, which is just literally next door to us, part of the partnership. And very specially, we welcome Mrs. Betty Grant Atunla, member of the Board of Management, and you will hear some more about her a little later on. Other members of the Board of Management, members of the Counseling Center Advisory Committee, representatives of stakeholder organizations, guidance counselors, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome very especially. And thanks very much for your understanding, because sometimes in partnerships, understandings are very, very important. Understandings are very important. So, without further ado, let me invite Pastor Bruce Paulson, who is with us this morning to offer prayers on this very special occasion. Pastor Paulson, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Morning, everyone. I want to pray, but I just can't help. I'm was particularly happy to hear about the center. Peter, you're at Papina. We know the challenges, that particularly young people are having, but young, old, and in between. And as we commit this clinic, this counseling center, we're asking for God's help. And we need to remember that the greatest model of counselors is Christ himself. We are reminded in John 3:16 that he loved people. He confronted people wherever necessary. He didn't condemn. And thankfully, he seeks to save those who are lost. John had made a prayer that his presence will be with us in this center. Almighty God, Father, We give you thanks for this day. We thank you for life. You are, in fact, the giver of life. None of us are here by our own devices. And so we give you thanks, and we come today to offer this center to you, to ask that you would grace it with your presence, with the right people, staffing, that you would watch over the work that is done here, and that you would ensure, Almighty God, that it be a place where help is not only sought but received. We ask that you would grant that this might form play a pivotal role in helping to bring just order and peace and better relations among people, particularly in this community. Almighty God, we think of the various schools. We know of the challenges that young people face, but we know that the challenges are not limited to any demographic grouping. But we ask, therefore, that by your mercies, you would just let this center be an expression of your grace to help, and as Christ said, to seek to rescue those who are lost, and to keep men and women from doing harm to themselves and others, and instead turning negative situations into positive ones. We ask these and other mercies in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Bruce. Thanks for that prayer and blessing. We now invite Miss Candice Carby, to Chairman of the Board of Management, to bring greetings.
Honorable Marshall Smith, Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and Youth, Reverend Peter Harding, Chairman of the Counseling Center, Reverend Bruce Polson, Pastor of Christian Life Fellowship Church, Mrs. Betty Grant Otunla, fellow board member, other members of the Board of Management, members of the Counseling Center Advisory Committee, representatives of stakeholder organizations, guidance counselors, members of staff of the Fish Medical Clinic, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring greetings on behalf of the Board of Management of the Fish Medical Center as you celebrate with us in opening the Lara Otunla Counselling Center. Now, for those of us who may not be frequent visitors of this campus, I'd like to highlight the significance of the location of this medical center. We're in the midst of several low-income, violence-prone communities such as Landlease, Tavern, Augustown, Kintyre, and Mona Commons. The board and management team are well aware of the increased need for and limited access to mental health support in these communities, and have for years considered adding a counseling center to our suite of services. But competing needs had shifted our focus. I believe reference was made to the gestational period, so we're here now to witness the birth coming out of that. We're aware too of the large youth, not only in these communities, but across Jamaica. We had a reference made as well that the fact that this is Youth Month. And the truth is that the mental health needs of our children and adolescents are simply not being met. In Jamaica, we find that anxiety and depressive disorders are among the leading causes of disability among adolescents. Heavy episodic drinking is prevalent among 15 to 19-year-olds, and we find that 25% of adolescents reported being bullied in the past 30 days. Now, I want us to juxtapose this with the outcome of a poll done amongst UNICEF, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and young persons, indicating that amongst those polled, while many expressed emotional distress, 90% felt that mental health was not taken seriously enough, and the factors contributing to this, two of those were lack of information and cultural norms. We're aware of the stigma, the taboo around mental health discussion, diagnosis, support, treatment, etc. As a matter of fact, we don't need to look any further than the emails from the person allegedly behind the bomb threats over the past few days to see what mental health experts refer to is the manifestation of that unmet need for intervention. I can't speak to the veracity of the letter or the hoax or anything like that, but we all saw it in the media. The good news is, at a national level, we see concerted efforts by both the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Ministry of Education and Youth to take mental health and related discussions out of that realm of cultural taboo. And in fact, the Reform of Education in Jamaica 2021 report specifically mentions the promotion of mental health as a non-cognitive skill that should be included in children's curricula, and recommends that cognitive skills, we know the problem solving, etc., and non-cognitive skills should be given equal weight in the curricula. I'm going to say that again. The same weight that we give to the ability to think critically, problem solve, etc., we want to give equal weight to mental health, because we recognize that mental health and emotional intelligence are of equal import to these cognitive skills. So at the community level, the Fish Medical Center is pleased to partner with all the stakeholders represented here and not represented, and our communities, to offer counseling support to those most in need. I won't spoil the surprise and give away too many details. I won't talk too long, but I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning, and I will turn over to Mrs. Grant Otunla to tell us the history behind the efforts that have culminated in this opening. You don't have to tell us what happened before the gestation. We're keeping it child-friendly.
Thanks very much, Candice. Much appreciated. Honorable Marcia Smith, our Minister of State, Ministry of Education. Reverend Peter Harding, Chairman of the Advisory Committee. Candice Carby, Chairman of the Board of Fish. And Reverend Bruce Paulson, Pastor of Christian Life Fellowship Church. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for honoring us with your presence here today at the opening of the Lara Otunla Counselling Center. I've been asked to give a short overview of the history of the Fish Clinic. By the way, it's soon to be rebranded the Louis Grant Medical Center. So when you hear about the Louis Grant Medical Center, please remember that it was what was formerly the Fish Clinic. It's not a new entity. The Fish Clinic has been here since 1985. My father, Louis Grant, who has been called a humble hero, because he was a very humble man. He was born in Mitchelltown, in what was then the parish of Vere, in 1913. He studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh, and he worked at UWI for many, many years until he retired. He actually rose to become the professor of microbiology at University of the West Indies. After retiring from UWI, at that time you had to retire at the age of 60. So he was full of vim and vigor. He wasn't ready to retire. So actually he migrated to Canada, and he worked in public health for 10 years. On his return to Jamaica in 1985, at the age of 70, with assistance from individuals and institutions in Jamaica, Canada, the US, and the UK, he established the Fish Clinic to give back to Jamaica, quote unquote. That's how he felt, because he thought that he had been blessed so much in his lifetime, and it was time now to give back to Jamaica. So my father had a vision, and out of this vision came the Fish Clinic. It was established to provide quality health care for the marginalized and the underserved in our society. From the very beginning, our staff have been well known for their competency, compassion, and their excellent care. When the clinic began in 1985, we had a medical, dental, eye clinic, we had a pharmacy, and we had a lab. Almost 75% of our patients were eye clinic patients. Now you wonder why? Well, our fees were very low. The government services, the government eye services were very limited in hospitals and clinics, and not many people could afford to go to ophthalmologists in private practice. So they came to us. Situation has not changed very much. Our fees are still very low, and the fact that 80% of our clients are returning patients attests to the very high level of service that our staff provide. 80%, that says a lot. I must say that our staff is our most treasured resource. Our staff is wonderful. Some have been here since we started in 1985. That's 38 years. And many of them have been here for over 30 years. So you can understand that they're very devoted and very loyal, and we are very, very appreciative of them. So even when the government had removed the user fees from the medical facilities, it was in 2008, FISH continued to grow from strength to strength. And now this year, we're adding a counseling center to our suite of services. Now, the counseling center is in particular for children and adolescents. That is the focus for the time being. We don't know where it will develop later on. So you may ask, why the Lara Otunla Counselling Center? Well, Lara is my daughter, and she suffered from anxiety and depression for many, many years. And even though she was being treated, she took her life on Christmas Eve 2020. So, of course, we're all quite devastated, family and friends. But my mother, in her great wisdom, asked the board to name a room in memory of Lara because she was a board member. She'd been a board member for 5 years. So I chose this room. We had a little naming ceremony. Well, I chose it because it was actually underutilized. It was only used for staff meetings, and once a month, we had a baby immunization clinic here, where the Ministry of Health sent up their public health nurses to vaccinate the babies. So it was underutilized. So we had a little ceremony, and we named it the Lara's Room, and this is a plaque which shows Lara's Room. Right. So now we have a room named in her memory. How would we utilize this room? The board had always recognized from a very long time that there was a need for a counseling center, particularly in this area in Kingston. We had thought about this for a long time, but there were competing needs, and we never got around to actually establishing it. Then I remembered that Professor Wendell Abel, who is also a member of our board, had shared with me a proposal that he had come about for a child and adolescent mental health counseling center. This was way back in 2013 or 14, but it was put on the back burner. Oh, by the way, Professor Abel, we call him the great conceptualizer, because he's very good at things like this. It was really a very good proposal, and we took it wholeheartedly. So he had envisaged this as a collaborative effort between FISH and UWI, hence the presence of Professor Roger Gibson from the Department of Psychiatry, UWI. So we do want to have this linkage, to keep this linkage with UWI. His plan was for a program of intervention for children and adolescents who needed psychosocial support. It was envisaged that initially the guidance counselors in neighboring schools would refer their students to this clinic, students who had psychosocial issues, and they would be seen here by counselors and psychologists. We all know that our children are suffering greatly. This is seen by the many incidents of antisocial behavior, violence, murders, suicides. It's abounding in our society. We see it every day, especially since COVID. A study done in 2021 by Capri, which is a policy group which is based at UA. They did a study on mental health in children, and they came up with the terribly frightening statistic that only 7% of our children in Jamaica have their mental health needs met. 7%. That's a heartbreaking statistic. Of course, this is totally unacceptable because our children are our future, and if we cannot ensure that they are going to grow up into healthy children, healthy adults, both physically and mentally, we're going to lose. We may well lose. We risk losing the next generation to underperformance, unemployment, crime, and violence. That's a whole generation of young people in Jamaica. We can't let them just go to waste. We can't. The board accepted the proposal for the counseling center very, very enthusiastically. And I'm so glad that the board was on board with us. Because as I said, it had been under consideration for a long time, but we just could not manage to get it together because we had so many other things to do. So we decided to begin by targeting 6 schools in the neighborhood. 3 primary schools, 3 high schools. The primary schools were Augustown Primary, Mona Heights Primary, and Hope Valley Experimental. Those are the 3 primary schools. And the high schools, Pepin High, Mona High, and JC. These are all in our neighborhood, and we feel, let's start there. We met with the guidance council from the 6 schools. That was an absolutely wonderful meeting. It was just a very good meeting. The guidance counselors were on board totally. They were very enthusiastic, and they were very happy at this initiative that we were taking, because they too were very concerned about the problems facing their children. We contacted educational institutions that train graduate students in counseling and psychology, such as UE, NCU, International University of the Caribbean. And we asked that their graduate students consider coming to FISH to do their practicum, because as you might know, these graduate students need to do 600 hours of practical work. So here we are. We have the children and we have the resource persons. And of course, we will hope that we also found some volunteer supervisors who will supervise these students. Ms. Shernette Brown is one of our volunteers. Mrs. Pauline Bain is one of our volunteers, and Dr. Shields, Lester Shields, has also volunteered. And we also hope that the members of the Psychological Society of Jamaica, Mrs. Javalaho, please note, we hope that your members also will be a part of this initiative, as we just need everybody on board. We can't do it alone. So as this is a community-based project, we must also reach out to the parents, try to inculcate better parenting practices, and to destigmatize mental illness. That's a big problem, the destigmatization. I know the Ministry of Health and Education are definitely on board with that, and they have started, but a lot more has to be done. Culturally, we just cannot understand that mental illness is an illness, not so unlike hypertension, diabetes, and most times, more than not, it can be managed, and people can actually lead a productive life, a healthy and productive life. It is possible. So the parenting skills have to be worked on, destigmatization. We will work together with government agencies and NGOs, as we are convinced that only by improving the mental health of our children and building a culture of care, respect, and love can we expect to have compassionate, resilient children, healthy in mind and body. And then, of course, I believe that would result in a much reduced level of crime and violence. The change that we wish to achieve cannot be met by building bigger prisons, increasing custodial sentencing, or even bringing back the death penalty. In my humble opinion, those measures will not help. And they won't help because we are not addressing the root causes of this criminality. That's where it starts. That's my belief anyhow. So we have a very good team. Reverend Peter Harding, as you know, is the chairman of our advisory committee of the Counseling Center, and he is a former guidance counselor at Pepin High. And we are very, very grateful to have you leading us, Reverend Harding. We have an advisory committee with people from MICO, Dr. Leela Vaughan, she's a retired counselor from the US, who has joined our advisory committee. And of course, as I said, we have Professor Roger Gibson. And we also have Dr. Megan Swaby from MICO on our team. Of course, our manager, I can't say any more except to mention that our manager is Miss Angelica Dalrymple. And all the guidance counselors will probably know her because she is the outgoing president of the Jamaica Association for Guidance Counselors in Education. Miss Dalrymple. She's busy with something up there. Lastly, I must mention the support that I've been given to this initiative by our general manager, Mrs. Pat Sinclair McCallum, and our deputy general manager, Mrs. Nelson, Olive Nelson, and the board in general. They have been very, very supportive. In fact, it was Mrs. Sinclair McCallum who insisted that we name the counseling center after Lara. I would not have been so bold as to suggest that. But on behalf of the entire Grant family, I want to thank you, Pat and Olive, and the board for just being behind us, being behind me in this effort. And I know now I'm happy it has come to fruition, and we know we will do our little bit ahead. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's our mission. We at the Fish Medical Center know only too well there's no quick fix. We feel very strongly that all our children are entitled to good quality mental health support, all of them, regardless of their socioeconomic situation. Every child in Jamaica deserves the best that we can give them. And we will use our best efforts to make a difference. Our clients pay a very minimal fee, and no one will be turned back for lack of ability to pay. We hope to have your full support to improve the mental health of our children, and we resolve to do our part in this very serious problem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
As I've always told my colleagues at school, if not for altruistic reasons, but out of individual, personal self-interest, it is in our interest to make certain that we invest in this generation. It is in our interest. If not for altruistic reasons of religion and giving themselves to Christ, if not for those reasons, but out of enlightened self-interest, it is in our interest to make certain that we invest and we continue that investment. Thank you very much, Sister Betty. Thank you. Call her sister because we are partners together in that regard. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've been treated to a wonderful taste of the history behind all of this. Let us now sit back a little bit and reflect as we received an item from the Augustine Primary School. What would a function like this be without the input of one of our young persons? And so we invite Ashanti Haynes to come now and to give us an offering.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashanti Haynes and I attend Augustine Primary School. And today I will be singing a song called You're Too Faithful. You are who you are yesterday. today and forevermore. What you say is what you do. You never fail, you never change. You are faithful till the end. Faithful God, I worship you. I worship you. You're too faithful to fail me. You're too faithful to disappoint me. You've proven yourself in my life, and I've come to realize that you're too faithful to fail me. You're too faithful to fail me. You're too faithful to disappoint me. You've proven yourself in my life, and I've come to realize that you're too faithful to fail me. You're too loving to leave me. You're too loving to leave me halfway. What you start, you always finish. But I've come to realize that you're too loving to leave me. You're too faithful to fail me. You're too faithful to disappoint me. You've proven yourself in my life, and I've come to realize that you're too faithful to fail me.
And Ashanti, we will not fail you. We will not fail you at all. Thank you very much, Ashanti. Thank you very, very much. And now, we will want to receive the keynote address from the Honorable Minister Smith, Marsha Smith. Honorable Marsha Smith is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and Youth. And as I understand it, the Honorable Smith has responsibilities for youth, the youth portfolio. So let me not steal the thunder of the next person who will come and let me go. Okay, so without further ado, let me invite Miss Angelica Dalrymple, manager of our counseling center, to introduce our keynote guest speaker, Honorable Marsha Smith. And so may I, without further ado, invite Ms. Dalrymple to come and to do so. You're now seeing her face for the first time, aren't you?
Thank you, Reverend Hardin, and you are too faithful to fail me. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all distinguished guests, and if I should mention members of the board, management, and I will keep the center for last. Let the light shine over there. All right, so let me go on. It's brief, and we have already heard the name, the Honorable Marsha Smith, MP, was appointed State Minister in the Ministry of Education and Youth on May 22, 2023. Prior to this, she served as Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, following her appointment on September 14, 2020. She was born and raised in the parish of St. Anne. Anybody? She was educated at Brownstown Primary School, Westwood High School, you know, that kind of prim and proper school, right? Brownstown Community College, and the University of the West Indies and Norman Manley Law School. She was admitted to practice law in 1997. Anyone here was born then? Her areas of practice include general legal advice, probate, conveyancing, and civil litigation. She served as a member of the Industrial Disputes Tribunal in the capacity of a deputy chairman from October 2017 to February 2019, and as a chairman from March 2019 to August 20. She was elected to represent the constituency of North East St. Anne in September 2020. Her interests include music, history, world affairs, calligraphy, and video gaming. She's a member of the Jamaican Bar Association, Northern Law Society Jamaica, Brownstown Methodist Church, and the Voices of Dawn Choir, Providence Methodist Church. Can you imagine who you're having this morning to speak with you? Give her a round of applause as we welcome her. Thank you.
Even though the room is small, I'm going to stand so that I can be seen much better. Good morning. And I hope that my smile is expressing how I feel to be here, because I come here not on my own stead. I also come to represent the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Fable Williams. But before I go into my presentation, there are some special people in this room that need to be properly acknowledged. Reverend Peter Harding, when you were a little late in coming, they commented that I was not the norm because I was a minister who happened to have come on time. But I thank you so much for how you have been leading the proceedings this morning and the pointing out to all of us present the reason why we are gathered here. And you have been supported by your brother minister, Reverend Bruce Paulson, who is the neighbor and is a neighbor to the fish location, in the prayer that was offered in dedication for this initiative, this center. You know, so for the little children, it's very important to us who are Christians, because we know that a society is judged by how we treat our children. Yes. And Miss Candice Carby, I was very happy to read the briefing for today to see that you are the chairman of the board of management as a young person. One of the things that we want to ensure is that there is youth participation when it comes on to issues relating to their well-being. In the advocacy world, they speak about nothing for us without us. So when you sit as the chairman of a medical outreach organization, that is no greater, that's such a great testament of the importance of a youth voice in overall health. Now, Miss Betty Grant Otunla, board member, I just want to greet you especially and to just commend your courage and to also commend the legacy that your father laid in this community to ensure that generations beyond him would have had a facility to access health care. So I give commendations and say to you, continue to be courageous. Your family is a shining light in this community. Mrs. Patricia Sinclair McCullough, the general manager of the Fish Medical Center. I was also very happy when I saw another church sister. You know, I have to make a confession. So, you know, Providence Methodist Church is very important to me personally. And so when I saw two members of my church community here, I felt like I was at home, yeah, at ease, but home. I didn't feel like I was going to be among strangers. I felt that I was going to be around family. Because ultimately, when we take care of mental health, we are actually creating a healthy family for persons to process whatever mental disorders that are happening. And so, great to see you. Miss Angelica Dalrymple, the manager of the Counseling Center, thank you very much for inviting me to present. And just thank you for being a part of this center and what the center hopes to achieve. There are members of the board here, members of the management team, advisory committee, and I see very many stakeholders from different parts of the society being present here today. I won't call everybody, but just to say that we who are all here gathered are distinguished guests, so I greet you very well. And I'm very happy to see the young. Let me tell you, I wrote it down, you're too faithful to fail me. So thank you, Ms. Haynes, for that lovely, lovely item, because there were some powerful messages that went out in that message. I didn't write down all of them, but I wrote down the one that resonated with me for today, that God is too faithful to fail me. We would have heard already that November is celebrated for many different reasons, and in particular, Parenting and Youth Month. And this year, we are actually celebrating Youth Month under the theme, Trending for a Sustainable Future. And it is a play on the theme of the Commonwealth for this year, because this year is the Commonwealth Year of the Youth. And so it's a continuation of Jamaica buying into that Commonwealth theme for youth being at the focus of the policies of government. And when we tie that particular theme with the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular the goal number 3, which speaks to good health and well-being, and probably the most important goal, which people don't often think about, which is goal 17, which is partnership for the goals. And so, Reverend Harding, when you, in your shepherding of the proceedings, you keep harping back to the idea of partnership, it is well in keeping with Vision 2030, because Jamaica will not be that place to live and to work and to raise families unless there is social partnership among all stakeholders. We know that the financing of mental health is not something that the government has the ability to bear on its own. And so private partnerships for mental health is of such great importance. So I was relating that when I was a student at the Norman Manley Law School, I would often pass along the Gordontown main road and I would pass fish. And one of the things that I would always think about when I pass fish, I will make you fishers of men. And the truth is, when we speak about making you a fisher of men, it's actually pulling persons into a space of care. So you cast your net to see the persons in distress and you pull them in. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be afforded the opportunity to actually enter this sanctuary and to see the work that is being done by fish. My senior, the Honorable Fable Williams, extends her apologies for not being able to participate in person, but she has a burning passion to see the well-being of our children protected and promoted and improved. And I know in particular that the Gordontown area and the schools that surround this area are of particular importance to her, because she also is member of parliament for some of the schools which will be served by this counseling center. So today we are seeing an expression of what collaboration can do. We are seeing what partnership can do. We are seeing what private advocacy can do to address a social need, the need of mental health. I want to also indicate, especially for young Miss Haynes, just in case she does not know, that there has been particular focus on mental health since the pandemic, because what the pandemic did was to expose that there were simmering layers of mental ill health. And they were always there. It's just that we were not paying attention, and that pause that COVID gave us allowed us to look at our situations. And we saw that persons were not taking care of their mental health. So this year was the 5th year that the World Health Organization has convened what is known as the Global Mental Health Summit. And I had the privilege of representing Jamaica at that summit in Argentina in October of this year. And one of the things that was discussed in that summit was the idea of looking at mental health based on the different life courses. And one of the life courses that was of particular importance was the youth area of the life course, because that is a particularly vulnerable area of the life course, because a lot of the mental health issues that become more difficult to control in adulthood can actually be tackled at that stage. So when it is that I saw that FISH is actually going to be doing a counseling center that is going to be focusing on that age cohort, I said, thanks be to God, because that is such a crucial cohort to provide mental health services. The other thing that happens when it is that our younger persons have an awareness that mental health is just as important as your physical health, it's a good way of addressing the stigma. You know, whenever you're trying to make a generational change, sometimes you say you have to wait for the older generation to die out and you instill the new values in younger people. And we know that it's true. If I were to see my grandparents raised from the dead now and give them a cell phone, they wouldn't know what to do with it. I mean, they wouldn't know what to do with it. But if I were to say my parents, they know what to do with it. I can do something with it, but if I give that same cell phone to my nephews or my nieces, they do far more with it. Which means that mental health support in the hands of the young is a very powerful, powerful tool. And it's a very powerful way to prevent a lot of issues from taking hold. As you said, they learn the tools that they need to identify, to anticipate when there's about to be some mental health challenge, and how to seek the help that they need. So I just want to just say that it is just such a timely initiative, and the Ministry of Education and Youth gives it its full support, because we know that poor mental health does lead to adverse and negative educational outcomes. And if you have adverse educational outcomes, your employability when you become an adult is also affected. So this is actually looking at the whole man, the whole child. So from the briefing, I know that this counseling center will provide mental health support for the students in Eastern St. Andrew, And there's been a particular targeting of primary and high schools to include Augustown Primary, Hope Valley Experimental, Mona Heights Primary, Jamaica College, Mona High, Papine High, at no cost except that registration fee of $1,000. And I know that eventually your partnership will extend to persons who will subsidize that and pay en bloc to allow maybe 100 students to access. And I hope that those initiatives that I know are taking place, that they will be fruitful and that the partnership can be further extended to have civic groups and private and companies also help to subsidize that cost for our students. Because the cost of medical health is also one of the barriers that young persons have towards accessing mental health. We know that there are mental health clinics that are in the public space, but the capacity is not sufficient to meet the demand. And that was one of the things that was pointed out at a recent mental health summit, which was held with the Jamaican youth in connection with UNICEF Jamaica, and that summit would have taken place in October 11th to 12th of this year, just last month. And one of the things that came out in the discussions was the fact that a lot of young persons, even if they were willing to get the treatment for mental health, they could not afford it because there was a recurrent cost that was prohibitive to most persons. So this is going to ensure that persons are able to get the sustained treatment for the time period that is required to reverse the negative mental health disorder that is actually taking place. So thank you again. And one of the things that I keep harping back to what the young people said at that meeting, because it was so important to hear their perspective on what they felt were barriers for them even being willing to say, I have a mental health problem. And one of the things that they mentioned was confidentiality as being very, very important if it is that they were going to go into a mental health treatment space. So I see here that one of the fundamentals or the foundations of this center will be confidentiality. And that is so important to get the buy-in of our young persons to come and get the treatment. So thank you for responding to that need that our young people have stated as being a barrier they see towards mental health. Now, it is my firm belief that as we cater to our young persons' mental health, we will see improvements in other areas. You know, Ms. Carby spoke about EQ, but we often focus our times on IQ. And IQ is your intelligence, is your academic performances. But coming out of a recent CXC meeting last week, one of the things that was discussed as the region seeks to improve the academic performance of students regionally was the need to take care of the EQ, because without the emotional intelligence being addressed, and your emotional intelligence to a great extent is tied to your mental health, you will not get the IQ that you're looking to get. The intellectual intelligence will not come without the emotional intelligence. So today we are actually celebrating something life-changing. Life-changing for all of the persons who will come here, all the young persons who will come here to get assistance. And we're planting a seed of well-being, because from that seed of well-being that we're planting, we're hoping, or we will reap, because guess what? I'm going to go back to what Ms. Haynes said. You're too faithful to fail me. So I am not speaking maybe, I'm speaking it will be, because he's too faithful to fail us. Our requirement is to plant the seed and he will give the growth. And so today is a day of faith where we have laid a seed, and from that seed, we expect to come more rounded, well-adjusted young persons, and the benefits to our society will be a safer, more sociable Jamaica, where people respect each other and where persons do not feel stigmatized for asking for help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much for your wide-ranging presentation. And part of the challenge that I wrote down here, now that the pandemic has opened or exposed what we knew was already there, what will we or what must we do now to ensure that we do not make the mistakes that certainly were made during the pandemic? So, you know, we have a lot to do. Thank you very much, though. Thanks for raising the importance of the importance of mental health and the life course that we must trod. I think that we need to ride and whistle, right? We have to deal with preventing while we treat. We have to. We can't just treat, you know. We just have to make certain that we prevent, and we do the prevention things by making certain that we empower our parents. We provide enough food for the ends of this world. We provide good support so that they can grow properly and so that they do not take advantage. Our hope here is that we will not have anybody come here. That is our hope, because we would have dealt with the issue of treatment or prevention so much that we reduce the need for treatment and so forth. But thank you very much. But mine is not the enduring privilege of thanking you and the rest of us. I want to hand over and to give that task to Mrs. Patricia Sinclair McCullough, General Manager of the Foundation for International Self-Help Medical Center, to do that task. Please put your hands together for Mrs. McCullough.
Honorable Marcia Smith, Mr. Chairman, members of the head table, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to extend the vote of thanks, and in particular, for me, it's really very special because many of you in attendance have played an integral role in bringing this to a reality. So right off, we have something to really thank God because He's faithful. Minister, we accept the message that you brought to us from the perspective that it really treated with the heart of the matter. Our appreciation to you is the fact that you consented to be with us at very short notice. And not only were you gracious in accepting, but you brought a message that really resonated with us this morning. Thank you. We note your encouragement in the pursuit of this ministry, because what we're doing at the counseling center is not just a work, it's a ministry. And it's our sincere wish to make a difference to those who will access the center. I want to highlight something you said, the importance of partnerships and collaboration to address the need of those with mental health challenges. And really want to thank you and the Ministry of Education and Youth, Minister Favour Williams also, in offering your support to the program that we will be pursuing. We will come to you for other things too. Reverend Peter Harding, a big thank you to Reverend Harding, who chaired this event, but more importantly, our special thanks to him for being chairman of the Counseling Center Advisory Committee. And I want, yes, you can clap it. I want to acknowledge the presence of Professor Gibson, Dr. Leela Vaughan, and Dr. Megan Swaby, who is also who are members of the advisory committee. So thank you very much. Special thanks to Reverend Bruce Paulson, our neighbor and pastor of the Christian Life Fellowship Center, for invoking the presence of God in our event, but more importantly, his blessings on the counseling center and those who will be served. With God's help, we will turn negatives into positives. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to Ms. Candice Carby, our chairman of the Board of Management, for her major contribution to the Fish Medical Center and the support she constantly provides for us at the center. We thank you that you brought greetings on behalf of the Board of Management, and I want to acknowledge both Ambassador Margaret Jobson and Mr. Jamil Bennett, who are with us. And as you would have heard, Mrs. Betty Grant Otunla is also a member of our board. Very special thanks to Betty. We really want to note with gratitude. Betty is the daughter of the visionary founder, Professor Louis Grant. And we want to thank her for the excellent presentation on the history of the then Fish Clinic. And her sensitive and vulnerable navigation of the birthing of the Lara Otunla Center. I want to use this opportunity to acknowledge our sincere thanks to board member Mrs. Pauline Grant, widow of Professor Grant and Betty's mother, for her quiet and sustained support of her work here at Fish. She regrets very much not being with us, but celebrates this milestone with us as she views this event online. Thank you so much for streaming. Ashanti Haynes, what an inspiration for us all. We want to give her a clap again. God is definitely too faithful to fail us and too faithful to disappoint us. Because when I think of the wonderful oak that has been birthed out of what was great sadness for us, it's really a celebration. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank all our grantees from our various stakeholder organizations, our board members. Thanks to the media and our videographer for streaming this event. And finally, I cannot thank our staff enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on various tasks, sometimes at very short notice. John Kennedy, former President of the United States, once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." We are privileged here at Fish to daily show our love, compassion, and empathy. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, sincere thanks to everyone. Lara was very special to us, so forgive me for being emotional. Minister. Thank you so much for sharing with us. You're no longer a stranger, you're family.
Yes.
So you have to come again and visit with us.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yes. The emotional things, are working. Not just the IQ, but the EQ, right? Yes. Emotional EQ quotient. Listen, we want to make certain that we now do this officially. We will cut the ribbon and everything, but I just want to put something there out there. In your presentation, Minister, you mentioned that that in 2008, a decision was taken for us to go. What is that? Remove user fees. I'm just wondering, as we mull over refreshments and mix and so forth. I mean, I'm just wondering out, and you can wander out with me. What implications would it, would arise if we reverse that decision and allow? I do not. I go to the chest clinic to look after a toe that I have there and so forth, and I have to go inside and beg them to take my health card. Beg them to take my health card. And so I'm just wondering, many of us here are able to pay in the public system. I'm just wondering if we should not reverse that and allow those of us who can pay to pay, so that we can now heighten the resources for Fish and the several other entities that are around, so that we can do a better job of riding and whistling, the treatment thing and the prevention. I'm just wondering, Minister, just wondering. So while we above our pay grade, no man, she's part of the system. So no. But I'm just wondering out loud, just thinking through all of those things. And I think that it's important for us to work through, because policy is what if eventually affects how we operate. Government policy. And we and right here, we on the ground, we are the ones who are impacted by government policy. But this is not mine. This is mine. I will now hand over to marshal the proceedings as we deal with the cutting of the ribbon.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, all you are our distinguished guests. At this time, we are going to be having our Honorable Minister to cut the ribbon, and we're going to asking you to stand behind. So it's a little different from the norm. So we're going to go, the minister's coming up, and we could take Lady Carby with us. All right, or if anyone else. And we are asking you to stand behind for the photograph. Okay, so this scissors will be yours. You can stay on one side. Wait, just no. There, the ribbon is there. You can stay right here, right?
Oh.
Okay.
So I'm on the bed down here? No, it's fine. All right. Okay.
Or you could come, you can,
Come on the
you could,
inside? Come on
you
inside
could come this side and cut.
Okay, this
Yes,
side.
you could stay this side and cut. Cameras, are you here? Yes. Okay, we're,
No, we have the right side. We have got the right side. The cameras are going to be on
the cameras are on that side. We stay on this side. Do you want to go home?
the cameras.
They are over there.
This cameraman. This cameraman. So he wants
This streaming, so what we could do is asking us here to go this way. Just for a minute, please. That's correct. All right. Is that okay? Round of applause, please. Thank you. Now, we're inviting you all not to leave us, but to refresh with us. Our refreshment is served on that side, and if you want me to lead you to there, I will. Are we ready? Let's come, everyone. So here is another section of this building, and we are refreshing ourselves on this side. And here are members of staff ready to assist you. This Honorable Marshal, yes? Okay, let's, Reverend. I'm inviting you all to come this side. Hello. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another area on the other side. Ambassador, please. All our distinguished guests, we are asking you, please go on the other side, and you can laugh and talk there as well. Could you go on the other side for refreshment? Refreshment on the other side, please. Yes, we want everyone to leave the room.